Hello on this night walk. I was contemplating, it's Friday night, and I was contemplating these beliefs I've been carrying with me for quite some time about being invited. Why this came up is because I was just out on the walk and recognizing that for most of my existence thus far, I have always been the inviter, if you will, and not really often the invitee. I haven't been to very many weddings. It's like I've rarely gotten those phone calls or texts hey, what are you doing? Do you want to blah blah blah? But I send those out on the regular. and I always have. This dates back to adolescence and childhood friends and I was just in this contemplation. I'm like, wow, that's quite the energy. That's quite the energy that I've carried for quite some time, and therefore manifested the experience of that continuation of that belief, of that energy, right? So I was like, well, I am certainly in a place where I am willing to try different existences. But that means I need to have different beliefs. It's just how it goes down. The belief determines the existence. So if I've been carrying around this belief that I'll just use the word never, because that's the word we over-exaggerate with all the time, but it's kind of, what has come forward is that I never get invited. I'm always the one inviting. And I'm just I don't get that. I'm am I kind of a crappy person to hang out with? But I think I'm pretty fun and pretty chill, and I'm a good listener. I don't know. The only thing that came to me, this was another contemplation outside of inviting, was desperation. The energy of desperation, because that is an energy that is palpable. That's something that we can emote, that people pick up on pretty quickly. Is oh, this just feels like desperation. And that's typically I would say a turnoff, right? There's some sort of pressure around that. And I'm not saying there aren't people out there who take advantage of desperate people, because there are. But for the most part, it's one of those things that you kind of avoid. So I'm am I desperate? When I'm hanging out with people, do I come off in certain ways? And there's probably some times I could think about that I was yeah, I could see at certain times I was kind of feeling desperate for a friend, or desperate for someone to like me or get me, or whatever. And why is that? Well, desperation for me in those moments, typically came from depletion. I was so busy looking into outside sources to provide me a sense of being liked or being cared for, essentially all that being tied to our survival mechanisms. We can't be rejected by the tribe, right? So I was tapping into that, and also, of course, just the societal beliefs. In fact, I was just talking to one of my son's friends in junior high about popularity, and I'm is that still a thing? I think these generations are pretty aware, or there's the word woke, right? And I'm because popularity is really based on a belief system of hierarchy within social recognition. And she's looking at me like, what? I was like, you mean, what do you mean you don't understand what I'm talking about when I'm asking you? I'm like, do you still experience a hierarchy of social recognition? I'm a nerd, so, and I love it. Okay, but that's essentially what popularity is. And it's just not true. And essentially that was her answer. She's like, well, it's just not true. Like, no one is a hierarchy of others. It just turns into this like belief system. And especially within culture, we can recognize like the popular folks, which are quantified, if you will. So that looks like, well, a lot of that now looks like followers, and it can look like wealth, and it can look like status, and it can look like all these things outside of ourselves that we need to acquire and either work for or spend money for to acquire. And those things are, what makes you popular. Now, I'm not saying that this isn't fully a current belief, but it certainly, I feel like, has been a dominant belief for a while, which is why there's so much consumerism. It's why there's so much debt, that things define us. Things define us. Things also can make us feel the things we're looking to feel. We are looking to feel recognized. We're looking to feel cared for, loved, sexy. And we can feel those things by buying those things. But how I actually have been able to experience feeling my best, feeling my most loved, feeling my sexiest, feeling my clearest, my healthiest, so much more in tune with my true self, is by knowing that I am the source of those things. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't have basic human needs, okay? And pleasure, and physical pleasure is definitely one of them. However, that can also be given unto thyself. Trust me. I have amazing sex with myself. Some of the best, really. Because you know what? It's just me, and I know exactly what I want. And how to do it. But friends, community, it's connection. It's connection. So, in this contemplation of wanting to readjust, reattune, reset a belief that I don't get invited, and that there may be an acute awareness of desperation, is to start a new system of beliefs. And I believe in doing that with a mantra or also a spell. And it can be simple. In fact, this one is just, I am invited. I am invited. I am invited. And I certainly know that's true from life itself. Life itself is definitely inviting me to join the party. And I'm down. I'm down.